Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and this is the podcast where we talk about taste. Your taste in movies, in film, and sometimes just movies. And are we better than the Oscars? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. With me to find out, it's Grace. How you doing, Grace?
I'm good. The Oscars consider themselves tastemakers, but based on the things that got nominated, they have some bad taste, Taryn.
I've
Some
seen
of
a
their
lot
taste
of
is bad.
discussion. I've seen a lot of discussion around these nominations.
Yeah.
The lack of some nominations, the inclusion of some nominations, especially after the Golden Globe. So we'll be talking a little bit about Oscar noms today, as well as catching up on the latest shows from the week, including Prime Target, The Night Agent Season 2. I even checked out The Joe Schmo Show, the revival. So we'll talk a little bit about that, catch up on some of the shows that have been on, and give you a preview of what is upcoming in the next week, aka this week. So let's go straight into it, Grace, because I feel like there's a lot to cover today.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Oscar nominations have arrived, and I've got them up here. Boom. Let's run
Okay.
through them. We won't go, I
Okay,
think,
let's
too
do
in
it.
depth, because we'll eventually want to talk about the results. But just
Yes.
some brief thoughts here. Best motion picture of the year, including Wicked, The Substance, pretty wild inclusion of
Mm-hmm.
a horror film, a body horror film. Anora, not surprising. Conclave, The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, Nickel Boys, A Complete Unknown, and I'm Still Here.
Yeah, so I think first reaction is like most of the things we really expected to be here that were no-brainers are here. The Brutalist, Anora, Emilia Perez was always likely to get nominated for Best Picture. So they're in their Conclave, I think you can put into that category. And then Wicked and Dune. Dune, there's a smidge of like, was Dune going to be sort of left out? But for the most part, I think people had it in their top 10. And then sort of, I think that there are some surprises in the sort of in the Substance, in Nickel Boys, and the big one I think is I'm Still Here, the Brazilian film. I like all of those films. A Complete Unknown, I guess, is the one I didn't mention. I would put that more in the it was pretty much guaranteed to get nominated. So that bumps out things like Sing Sing, my biggest disappointment, and there's a specific category I'm most upset about the film not being nominated, but Challengers felt like it had a chance pretty much all the way through and is not in there. And I feel like I'm missing at least one other movie that people kind of thought was in there, but I definitely feel like The Substance, Nickel Boys, and I'm Still Here are the surprise movies of the Best Picture nominee, uh, grouping.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think for the most part, we have been talking about all of these movies, maybe except for I'm Still Here as much. Um, I certainly knew of all of them by this point. So if you've been listening to the podcast, you know what you're talking about, maybe. I would say of the ones I've seen so far, Wicked, The Substance, Conclave, Brutalist, Dune, and a wee bit of Emilia Perez. Honestly, not super hyped on any of them. I think The Substance is probably my favorite of those so far.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Conclave, I would say, was also very good. I'd probably give it to Conclave as a best picture right now. But again, I've yet to see Anora. It will come soon, I promise.
Uh-huh.
I'm excited to see Nickel Boys. I'm very excited to see I'm Still Here. Seems to be very like an 8.9 on IMDb is very high with 15,000 votes, which is to me an indication that the audience likes it a lot, and the critics seem to like it a lot as well. So, um,
So I do think, like, not to say that's not a good film. I actually think it's quite incredible. I think the surpriseness of it is coming from the fact that it's a Brazilian film, and Brazilian audiences are really resonating with it. I think it's like one of the highest grossing Brazilian films of all time. If you look on Letterboxd, there's a lot of Brazilian film fans out there, and like I'm Still Here is rated very highly on things like Letterboxd, and then even here on IMDb. It's really good. I also think it's like incredibly timely. It's about this woman's life throughout moments of military dictatorship in Brazil, sort of that coming, like arriving in Brazil and it ending, and so it is. It's quite powerful. It's quite good. Happy it's there. Very happy for Nickel Boys. It does feel like the race is going to come down to. I feel like there's two front runners, with the idea that there's a third surprise winner could happen because of ranked choice voting. It does feel like it's Amelia Perez versus The Brutalist, but those are both two films that seem to be quite liked by the people who are rooting for them, but are polarizing in their own ways. I think most notably for The Brutalist, there was the story about AI that came out last week that has since been clarified that it's not quite, I think, um, such a basic, like, oh, they used AI and that's bad. I think that it was a little bit more nuanced. There was some maybe language barrier stuff with the interview that was done. All that to say, it does feel like if people start putting those movies at the bottom of their list, I think that is maybe good news for Conclave, Nora. I've even heard a little chatter about A Complete Unknown maybe benefiting from a ranked ballots, because these things that are like liked by everything, but not like necessarily everybody's number one. Whereas the things that are a lot of people's number one might also get rated 9, 10 on people's lists. So it does feel like that's sort of the race as the nominations have been, as of being announced last week. Things could still change. There's lots of other award shows that the winners will be announced along the route to the Oscars. But that seems to be
Yes,
the
I
best
think
picture race.
the big story I've seen a lot is about Amelia Perez after the success of the Golden Globes, now being nominated for so many things here in the Oscars. A lot of people like, not really though, right? Like you're not really.
Uh-huh.
And the backlash for this film, I think, continues to grow as people become more and more informed about the issues that people are having with it. A lot of what I'm hearing is like worse than Crash, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that thing keeps happening too, Greenback. I do think I was chatting with some friends over the weekend about this movie, and I do think that there is something to the Oscars wanting a movie that does feel like it resonates in a way. And I do think there is a little bit of like, I think especially when I saw Amelia Perez, it was at TIFF, and I saw it pretty late in the festival, and I kept feeling like people would come up to me specifically as it'd be like, "Have you seen Amelia Perez?" And I'd be like, "No, I haven't." And I was very excited to go see it. And I do think there is a little bit of like, um, people thinking that movie is doing something. It's there is like literally the one thing that we sort of said in my friend group, which like I'm just only a trans person, but these are two queer men, of like, if the Oscars ends where like Carla Sofia Gascon is making a speech about like her, like about trans issues in America, like that will not be, I think, like a way for me. There's like a level of like, I think I'll be okay with it. That's not my favorite thing ever. But if like Carla Sophia Gascon gets to like make this speech at the end of the Oscars, like she did at the Golden Globes, I'm like, yeah, okay. At least we're like okay, I understand that, like the appeal of that moment. I just think there's a little bit of like people misunderstanding what the movie is saying about like, because there is a reading of like that movie being, um if you don't let people be who they truly are, the worst of themselves comes out. Like that's a little bit of the reading, which like I can see how people get shifted into being like, that's a great message, and I'm like, no, but it's actually like a bit dated in terms of the way we talk about trans people. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
ultimately, I think it's just from what I've been able to ascertain, it's just a very shallow sort of dive into a bunch of different, very like complicated topics,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and doesn't really do any of them justice,
yeah.
including trans issues, including Mexican culture, including a lot of different things. And so I think that is largely where many of the issues stem from it. And also, I've now seen some of the some of the other songs from the rest of the movie that are a little ridiculous.
They've cut all best song performances from the thing, which I think is I never really loved that thing of like that's what we got during the Oscars, but also it does seem like that's probably because none of the Wicked songs could be nominated. Now they can do the Wicked songs, so we'll see. We'll see.
Best performance by an actor. Is this The Brutalist, a complete unknown kind of fight here? Perhaps?
Yes, I believe it's completely that. It's whether
Thank you,
Adrian Brody or Timmy can pull it out. And it did seem like Adrian Brody had the advantage until obviously this AI thing happened, which maybe has hurt him. I still think Adrian Brody will win over Timmy, but we'll see. I think the other surprise here is Sebastian Stan getting nominated and being for The Apprentice, which I think is the better performance of the two performances. But it's interesting that that he did get nominated. I think because people thought maybe he would be splitting his nomination, that people would nominate him for one over the other, but it does seem like he got in for The Apprentice. So
there you go. Best performance by an actress in a leading role. This went to Fernanda Torres in the Golden Globe.
It went for Fernanda Torres and Demi Moore because they split comedy and drama.
Right.
So now they're both competing against each other, which makes sense. And then also in here you have Mikey Madison, who seemed like the front runner for a long time. You also have Carla Sofia Gascon, who is the first openly trans person to get nominated, and then Cynthia Riva, who I really like. So this is a stacked category. This is like one where we'll look back and be like, oh, any of these people I think could have actually won.
Yeah. Actor in a supporting role.
Kieran's to lose. I think he seems to be the runaway favorite. So we'll see. But I really like Guy Pearce and Edward. Like all the performances are really good. No surprises in the nominations, but it does seem like it's Kieran's to lose.
Best performance by an actress in a supporting role. Again, Zoe Saldana, who is
category fraud,
and Ariana Grande, who are not supporting actresses.
Category fraud. That's okay. I think the bigger surprise here is Monica Barbaro getting nominated. I think that people really love that performance and were a little surprised that she hadn't been being nominated before this. And so very delightful to see her. She's really good. She's incredible in that movie. This will be Zoe Saldana winning though, I think.
Best achievement in directing. Big snubs in this category is what I'm reading. That in particular, Luca for the Challengers, and of course,
Denis Villeneuve, not for getting in for Dune, I think is the big the surprise. But those seem to be, they came out far earlier in the year. They Challengers is not quite the like blockbuster movie that people I think it is. I think it had very good meme potential.
I think the even bigger snub for Challengers is Score, which it won the Golden Globe for and wasn't nominated the Oscar for.
It's wild. I don't get it at all. This is probably Brady Corbet, but I really do think anybody could win this award. Really, but I'd say front runners are probably Jacques Audiard and Sean Baker behind.
I would love for Sean Baker to win. I think he's a really, really great director. I also really liked Coralie Fargo.
Yeah.
I really liked her direction for The Substance. I doubt she has the again, it's a horror movie. The fact that they're nominated at all is pretty amazing, but I would be pretty pleased with that as a win as well. Original screenplay. What stands out here?
I'm happy that Jesse Eisenberg got nominated, but this does feel like it will probably be once again it's the same. I think it's directing that it's probably either The Brutalist, Anora, or The Substance, and it's all of the directors. I actually to make a point earlier about there's another snub. I thought it might be Edward Berger for Conclave was surprising for best director, and I have this theory that I do wonder whether there's a little bit of there's more love for writer directors. I think the only director who didn't write their screenplay, I can't remember who it is, but it doesn't matter. But if I look at the front runners for this category as well, I think it's Sean Baker, Brady Corbet, and Coralie Fargo, who all are also the directors of their film. So
yeah, Conclave not receiving a writing. No, it did receive a writing nomination.
It did, but it didn't.
Screenplay.
but then it's the writer is different than the director. So
Right, not a director nomination, which is
not a
a
director
bad
nomination.
sign for its best picture
Totally agree. Yes.
chances.
Yeah.
Adapted screenplay, Emilia Perez.
Probably Emilia Perez. I would really like it
Or
to be
like,
Little Boys,
but genuinely, is the backlash on Emilia Perez, is that enough? Because it was not enough to stop Green Book, but I don't
or
think Green Book had
yeah.
as much backlash as Emilia Perez, and it was more of a crowd pleasing movie.
Yeah, it is really hard to tell whether there will be backlash based on like if it is real backlash. Sometimes I think that there's like there can be a thing of like let's do it anyway, but like we liked it. Let's just vote for the thing we actually like. It doesn't really like I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting. Cinematography, Nosferatu, another horror film.
Uh-huh.
And rightfully so. Man, cinematography was pretty fantastic. Between The Brutalist, Nosferatu, Dune, they were all fantastic. Honestly, this one I might give to The Brutalist. I really liked Nosferatu, and Dune is obviously amazing, but like The Brutalist felt different, it felt new.
Yeah, the surprise here, I think for me is Maria, like in this category. I think the other things
I
that it
don't know
was
what it
like
is.
looking to be uh it's Angelina Jolie
Oh yes.
playing Maria Callas. It's quite good. I think. It's just people thought she would have been nominated for best actress, but she didn't.
Mhm.
So it's in here for cinematography. I would agree with you. Those are the three. It's like it's I think it's between Brutalist and Nosferatu, and probably the Brutalist just because there's horror bias, probably. But
Best achievement in film editing. Again, they're all the same movies at this point. Just
yeah, you're just kind of well.
swapped
So
around.
this is a year where I think it's the one of the years with the least amount of films nominated, like overall.
It's not
So it's
surprising.
yeah, it's more which I think part of my thing about like the Golden Globes, people were wondering whether it was a it's a predictor, and I do think it is probably more of a predictor than I would like it to be. But I think that it's not so much that individual award shows are predictors as much so as there is much more of um common like we talk about movies all the time. Like there's a general way in which people talk about movies and they get reacted to, and there becomes more of a consensus, I think, around specific movies. My friend also had a theory about um uh there was used to be that a lot of the films that would get nominated for best picture were often male centered movies, and people in trying to um nominate for best supporting and best lead actress would end up watching different movies. And now there's like a little bit of like, now that there's more female led movies, people are actually watching less movies over, which is a really, I thought, I don't think I have enough time to like think about it more, but I think that there is more of a like, people watch all the same movies, think the same movies are good. Like we have less of a disparate culture in terms of like what people are watching. So I think it's going to lead to more and more of like movies getting nominated for 13, 10, 8,
Well,
10 categories.
I think that's interesting because I think there are more movies being made, more TV shows being made than ever
Mhm.
before, right?
Mhm.
Um, and we know we talk a lot about like the demise of the monoculture, especially in television. But I could see that there is a reverse effect where if there's so much, then you tend to gravitate toward your sort of like your niche, which is like one central hub for like that thing, as opposed to like, at least from my own personal experience, when I was a kid, I was much more daring in my choices of like going out and watching things that nobody knew about.
Right.
Whereas now it's like there's so many things I could do that, and then it would just get lost, and like, I could sing its praises, but nobody would ever really hear me. Um, and so I do tend to stick to more of the, out there, in the conversation things. But that's also kind of what we're here for,
It's true.
ourselves, the
Well,
Tastemakers.
even in the last 3 years since I've been trying to do basically every year when the Oscar nominations happen, I try to make sure I've seen everything that gets nominated for any and in any category. And I'm very fortunate that I live in Toronto, and I'll be able to get to go watch like all the shorts, the animated docs, and the live, all in like one sitting. Like I have a theater near me that will play all the short docs at a time. Then all that. Very fortunate. I think in the years I've been doing it, there's only one film I literally could not access. Like I could not find this one movie like 2 years ago, got nominated for best songs. It wasn't like the whole thing was like super important. I couldn't stream it, I couldn't buy it, I couldn't rent it. I could not watch it.
Just listen to the
Which like
song.
yeah, just I kind of like just listen to the song. But I do think that there is a thing about like there is also the way of like you can kind of watch whatever you want. Obviously, I'm very fortunate. I live in a major city that get the movies come, but eventually they basically all land somewhere online. If you have to pay for it, you have to pay for it. But we all can kind of watch those things as opposed to I think some of the niche things from before, like. If it then you just never actually see it again, like ever, which is a brand new thing. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I would say editing again. Honestly, I did really like the editing of The Brutalist. I had some issues with the movie, but that was mostly the writing. I think more than anything else, and the technical aspects of it. I actually did really like, and I think the editing is a strong point of it. So, um, production design again, all the same. This one I might give to Nosferatu actually, or Conclave, or Dune. There's a lot.
There is a lot.
Honestly, they're all very good.
I do think this is a year of like a lot. There's a lot of really good movies. A
Yeah.
lot of these and this is where down the line I think like you tend to see typically something will sort of like establish itself as a bit of a front runner in terms of like that could be Dune or could be Nosferatu, that just like the seems to be those people who do costume design or do production design or whatever, like really gravitate towards those, and then you get like a little bit of everyone's like something else might win there. This does feel like it's potentially more of a year where like all of this stuff could just get totally split up, that like Nosferatu could win some and Wicked could win some and Dune could win some, Brutalist and as well.
Costume design. Similarly, Nosferatu, Conclave, Gladiator gets a nomination here.
Yeah.
Best sound, which is it's still a weird category to me after the previous ways they did this.
Yeah,
but
they used to split it up. I think now it's one category. It used to be like best set, and there was
mixing and
something
editing.
else. Yeah, mixing editing. Now it's all just one.
Best sound, best noise.
Well, it is a real art, I think, when you look at like
Yeah.
like it's like doing a lot of the Foley stuff and
This I
making
would
sure
give to
that the peak.
Dune.
I would also give this to Dune, but yeah.
Best achievement in makeup and hairstyling. The Substance.
I would
Come
give it to the
on.
Substance. I would give it to the Substance.
You got to give that to Substance, or maybe Nosferatu, but you gotta give that one to the. If the Substance doesn't win any other things, it's got to be that one.
Yeah.
Best achievement music written for motion pictures original score. So this is what was the Challengers was
Challengers.
snubbed.
Yeah, does
Because
not get a
genuinely, I
nomination.
would take the Challengers over every single one of these movies.
I agree. I do think the Brutalist score is incredibly good. And going back to
I agree.
rewatch it, I felt like I was so blown away by it. Again, like it's the first scene of the movie is like one of the most, I think, powerful things I've seen in a while. I think the Conclave score is good too. Wicked, I just don't think will win because of like all the other like music stuff related to it. That it's like it's all riffed on the musical stuff. So I don't think it'll win. I would give this to the Brutalist, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Best achievement in music written for motion pictures original song. And there are 2 Emilia Perez songs here, one from Sing Sing, one from Elton John, Never Too Late, and one from the 688.
This is, I think, the first category where I have not watched 2 of them. I thought I had watched everything except for the shorts, but I've not watched the Elton John documentary, and I've not watched the 688, which is about female mail sorters in the war, which I thought they were soldiers, and they're not. They sort mail. That's the story. It's a Netflix movie. And Diane Warren, once again, just like the Academy loving her stuff. So, yeah.
Best achievement in visual effects, Alien Romulus nominated. Another horror film, which we talked about this a little bit about Alien. Absolutely deserved. In fact, I would say contender to win in my eyes. except for one particular effect that was very bad.
I have two of them actually, so I don't think it should win because I have two. I have the controversial one. I
Mhm.
also think the ending of the movie doesn't totally the visual effect of it doesn't totally work for me.
Really? I thought that was really, really well. Okay, well, it depends on what you're talking about. Are you talking about spacey stuff or
No,
creaturey stuff?
creature.
Creaturey stuff. Okay, that's fair. I think the spacey stuff was really
Mm.
good.
The Kevin Spacey you have it on record. Taran says the Kevin Spacey stuff was excellent.
Ooh,
um,
that's a bad
fu-
clip.
funny funny two monkey CGIs in here with King of
That
Planet
is
Apes
true.
and Better Man and Wicked monkeys. They love monkeys in this
They do.
for visual effects.
I mean, I feel like you almost have to give it to Dune, but I haven't seen Kingdom or Better Man. Kingdom kind
I
of the Kingdom of the or the planet the new Planet of the Apes movies have been very, very good with visual effects, I will say.
that those are the three I would and honestly there's a little bit of me that would like it. I would give it to Better Man. I think the fact that movie is, I know there's been some there's been some stuff recently of like it really doesn't work that he's a monkey. I think it like did not bother me that he was a monkey the whole time, and it's very impressive. So yeah.
Best documentary feature.
So there is one snub here. I do think Daughters. It's on Netflix. Check it out. It's
Mhm.
about incarcerated men who have a father-daughter dance with their daughters. It's extremely good, and I can't believe it didn't get nominated. It maybe says something about Netflix documentaries. There's a little bit of maybe folks not loving Netflix documentaries, so that's a little disappointing. I have not watched any of these, I think,
Oh.
but I have heard incredibly good things about No Other Land, Porcelain War, Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, and if you could scroll down, there's one more, and Sugarcane. I have watched Sugarcane. Sugarcane is very good. So these are supposed to be are very good. We'll say they're all extremely heavy topics, and that is definitely a thing that the Oscars does um,
Mhm.
tend to lean into. Like I think there's a lot of Palestine stuff in here. Sugarcane is about uh, Indigenous residential schools in Canada. So yeah.
All right, best animated feature. Wild Robot Flow, Inside Out 2, Wallace and Gromit Memoir of a Snail. I'm going to say one of the movies that I have watched this week was Flow.
Well,
And
there's a little bit of a spoiler here, Taran, in the sense that Flow got nominated for Best International Feature. And so that does not mean that it will absolutely win this category, but it does feel like it will win this category. But I, between it or Wild Robot, I think is probably where things will go.
well, having seen the first three here, Wild Robot, Flow, and Inside Out 2, Flow is now my new winner pick for animated feature.
Yeah, it's really good.
Um,
Really great. Yeah.
I will go on to say, I think Flow might be my favorite movie of the year so far.
Whoa, fun.
I
That's
really
really
liked
great.
Flow.
Yeah, it's really good. As a cat person, Taran, doesn't surprise me. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I say that like it's the sort of movie that I think you shouldn't go in overhyped on. So
that's
like I
probably
don't want
true.
to overhype it. It connected to me personally very well, and I really really enjoyed it. And I'm not usually a person that likes no dialogue movies. I'm a big lover of dialogue, but they had some amazing voice actors for this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Real animals, I believe.
Yeah, they had a
Yeah,
camel playing
yeah,
capybara.
yeah, yeah.
Animated short film, live action short film,
Seen none of
documentary short
these.
film,
Seen none of these.
international, and then we go. Yeah, I also used to watch all of the shorts. I feel like like a decade ago, I was really enjoying that. And then I feel like I started to not enjoy them as much because there were too many long, boring ones. So I stopped.
Supposed to be
I started
short.
trying to watch them individually instead.
Um, the only thing is for best international feature, Amelia Perez gets nominated, so it will actually likely win, even though Flo also got nominated. I'm Still Here, I guess, is in there as well, which did get
Hmm.
some love, so you could see that. I actually think The Girl with the Needle and The Steven Circuit Fit are both quite good as well. So it's a strong category. No.
All right. Well, that is the Oscar. Those are the Oscar nominations. I'm sure we'll have more to say once at least I've watched more of them, and then once we get the award ceremony and get to complain about all of their choices.
This is the year for folks. If you've never done the like watch all the films that get nominated, this does seem to be one of the years to do it because the number
It's
of
an
films that get
easier
nominated. It's easier.
easier year. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Let's talk about any other news before we talk about some of the shows.
I don't think so.
All right. Let's talk about Prime Target, because this was heavily advertised on Apple TV. Their sort of take on a like kind of thriller drama. And I said I saw the trailer, I saw the preview. I was like, this doesn't look that great, but it's Apple TV, so maybe I'll give it some, a little bit of a shake here. I saw the first 2 episodes. I was very bored.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I've only watched the first episode. I was traveling to New York this week, so I did not get a chance to watch a ton of television, but so I watched the first episode. I quite liked it, but I also do think I could feel myself being like, oh, I think I'll like this more than people like it. I think
Mm.
there is a thing. I don't want to say I like boring things, but I do think a slower character, to me, he's the most interesting part of the show. He's a mathematician who is incredibly socially awkward. I don't know whether we're going to get into like, does he have an official like diagnosis or whether there's trauma or something related to why he is so awkward, but he's incredibly awkward. There's a scene in the first episode where he's like, I must write on your tablecloth to like figure out the math equation, there's a little bit of like Goodwill Hunting, but he doesn't have any of the social like the thing of that is that like he has social charm,
It's
so
like
that it's
Goodwill
more
Hunting if it was a Dan Brown book.
if it's a okay. I was trying to think of like how I put the mystery thing, because the show opens with something that's more like feels more spy thrillery, and then we cut to this. I feel like it's Goodwill Hunting meets Dan Brown, but then also kind of meets like Imitation Game. Like I
Mm.
don't know if you want, so like awkward queer man thing going on.
Mm.
So you get all
I
of
did
that.
think about that, yeah.
You put them all in a blender and you kind of get Prime Target. So I don't know. I don't think it's like the best show ever, and I do think it like sort of fits in my wheelhouse a little bit of like sometimes I'm just willing to sit and ride with like the slow character stuff. So I like that. But I've only watched one of the two. So
Mm.
yeah.
I feel like it took a really long time to get to what the plot is. Um, in fact, I would say 2 episodes in, I still don't really know what the plot is. Um, so that was a little bit of an issue for me.
Well, so without watching, okay, can I ask you something in terms of episode
Mhm.
1 versus episode 2? Because I think pilots are pretty tough generally. You have to do a lot of setup. You have to introduce like your main character. We talked about this about the Pit. That I think the Pit did this really good job of being like, this is our main character, and then slowly sort of like, and not slowly even. I thought they actually did a lot in the first episode of the Pit, but they were like, but here's their connection to the main character. Like this is their connection. This is their connection. This is their connection. Whereas in general, I do think pilots can be like very tough overall. They like are like you look back and they're like, they can't all be lost. They can't all have like the plane crash and the epic moment of that. Like there's often a lot going on. I found that there was enough through the first episode that I thought I was supposed to be intentionally left in the dark to not like, because the premise seems so like the thing that seems to be most like the heavily guarded secret of like, don't look into this stuff, seemed to be
Mhm.
so vague that was kind of the point. But I guess if you're saying potentially by the end of episode 2, even then, like if we get no real forward momentum on that, then like I
I
guess
mean,
that's
you
annoying.
definitely I mean, it's a little hard for me to remember what was in episode 2 and what was in
That's
episode 1 because I
that's
watched them
fair.
back to back. Um, but I do think you do get a little bit more clarity. You're introduced to a couple of I don't know. There's like another character involved that does some explanation. But yeah, it just feels. Um, I think for the kind of story it is, it just felt very slow. And I was just not invested. Now, maybe it could catch me back up, but it just was not exactly what I was interested in. Now, compare that to the other show that feels very similar because it's a very similar looking man.
They are pretty similar looking men. They are.
The Night Agent season 2. Now I never watched season 1, so what I did is I started watching season 1,
Yeah.
and I actually really enjoyed the Night Agent.
Okay.
Very quickly. Now, similarly, there's a conspiracy plot thing happening, and similar probably ish situation where there's a dude and there's a woman, and they're trying to do things. But this was more entertaining, I would say. Not to be a little too lizard brain here, but just very engaging. I ended up watching like 2 or 3 episodes of the first season, maybe 3. And I'm just like enjoying it. It's a fun time. It is 10 episodes in the season, it does feel like a lot. And I do think that they've padded it out a bit, especially with like some side character plots that I'm like, was this really relevant? But I would say if you're looking for like a fun thriller, this is definitely more of your fun thriller.
Can I tell you that it's interesting. I do think that Prime. I didn't watch Night Agent, so but interesting to know that like you have it on your radars. Like you think, like you watch it and you liked what you saw.
It's not gonna blow you away.
Yeah, I was
It's just
trying to
like,
not.
yeah.
I was trying not to like be like. And you said you loved it. You said it was your favorite show ever. So Prime Target. It's interesting as I was thinking about like what of it for me worked, but then also like didn't work. And I actually think there's something to the idea that Apple TV has 3 shows that have aired or are airing that actually I think there is a similar formula seemingly to all 3 of these shows, and they are working on various levels, of whether they're working or not. They're 3 shows that the Prime Target, the other 2 are shows that, for the most part, seem to be being enjoyed by the people who are watching them to an extent. This would be Severance, and this would be Silo. Prime Target has a thing of like, here's the thing that the person is like doing, but then also big mystery as to like something above looming over them to be like
Yeah.
something out, like don't do that, or like what. So you have that with Prime Target. I'll just to like give a little more detail. He's really interested in prime numbers. He wants to do more research into prime numbers. He's a student, and they're like, don't do that. And there's like a lot of like mysterious, like cryptic, like don't look into that. Don't look into that. And then Silo, you have like they all live in a silo, and it's like, but why do they live in a silo? And then you get more and more as you go on. It's like, well, maybe who's in control of this thing? Obviously, Severance has Lumen being like, come do the job, do the work, but like don't question why you do the work. So what's interesting is that Apple is clearly like into that as a formula. They think like when they're greenlighting shows, there's something to that thing that's working. But then also when you put 3 of them on TV at basically the same time, like Silo just ended, Severance is in season 2. Now you have Prime Target. I also then can't help but sit here and be like, even subconsciously being like, oh, I liked it, but like, it's not as good as Severance. And Severance is like, I think the best show on TV. And so now you're doing sort of similar-ish formulas. And I wonder whether that affects whether people enjoy it or not.
I think that's an interesting point. I think maybe my issue with Prime Target is that it is not enough of that, because the like
right.
the prime numbers thing is just not interesting to me as a mystery. So it's like, if it was if it was a little weirder, I would like it a lot more. But they're playing it really straight so far, at least. And that is just like not that interesting to me. The Night Agent is a show that also plays its conspiracies very straight, but it's a more entertaining, just like turn my brain off kind of show. So like I don't mind. I'm having fun with it. I think
I
this
also wonder whether
actually.
you
Go
need
ahead.
I wonder whether you need sci-fi versus science. I wonder about Three Body Problem, where like that is sci-fi, I guess. But I think the thing with Three Body Problem is almost like too into the math being like all of this stuff being right in a way that really works in the books that like then I don't think worked in the show at
Mhm.
all. Whereas like Severance is so sci-fi, right? Of like, here's the thing that
Yeah.
likely doesn't exist. And it feels like Prime Target is mostly pretty grounded at the moment in terms of like you're not that far off of what maybe could be the science, like the mathematic advancements of our day. Of like we found a new prime number. Like I didn't know you could do that. You can. They
Cool.
found a new prime number recently. It's true. It's a true fact.
I think this also kind of ties into this was a little bit of a surprise that we hadn't even queued this show up because it hasn't aired yet. It's going to be airing this week, so we were going to talk about it as a preview, but it actually they released their pilot episode early, and it's the show Paradise. And this is starring Sterling K. Brown, created by Dan Fogelman, who did This Is Us. And so he's back with Sterling K. Brown. But this is very different than This Is Us, although he does get to have a little bit of a monologue in the first episode. I will tell you that. And that did feel very This Is Us. But apart from that, didn't feel very This Is Us because it's a thriller. It's a bit of a political kind of thriller.
You don't say. There's a new political thriller?
Right. So but what I will say is that I think that this is doing the thriller thing. Like this felt like it was a better fit for like Apple than Prime Target. Like Prime Target felt like it should be on Hulu, and Paradise felt like it should be on Apple TV to me, because Paradise felt very, very well crafted. And I really, really enjoyed this first episode. I literally watched it this morning because they dropped their first episode early, and I understand exactly why they're dropping their first episode early. And I think they're also like airing it on TV because it does hook you. Like it's a little bit of like a whodunit mystery, and the mystery element is actually very intriguing. And the performance is, of course, great by Sterling K. Brown. And genuine, I would just like, I don't want to say much more than just watch the first episode, because I do think this is a really interesting show that I'm curious to see more from, for sure.
Okay, fun. Yeah, I didn't realize that it had dropped, so I will be checking out Paradise. I feel like I saw a lot of ads for it as I was traveling this week. So yeah, I'll check out Paradise.
Like, I hope it's not just one of those like a first episode's good, the rest is not as good. Another show I want to talk about, The Agency, which I did check out more of, hoping that it would get better again. I was told it got better again. For me, it just hasn't, and I'm just kind of like, I've gotten to a point with The Agency. This is the Michael Fassbender spy thriller. Where I was like, I do feel like there's potential here. I know the original, I believe maybe Danish, I don't want to get that wrong, but the original version of the show, which was an international show,
is
very French. Sorry,
French?
I apologize to the
That's
French.
Okay.
It very highly praised. I was liking the first 2 episodes of The Agency, but then really just got bored with it. I might just go and watch the original French version and not finish this season of the American version, so that I don't spoil myself on.
No, it's not Finnish. It's French. I haven't really watched more of this either. I was kind of waiting for pretty much all of it to drop, which I think it's close to.
I think the finale is either already here or coming soon.
Yeah, I think it has aired already.
The 24th. Yes, it just aired. Yeah,
last Friday. So I will dive back into this. It is tough though, because I do think it's probably mostly that there are just so many political thrillers that I'm just a little bit like, they all seem to come out and you got to watch them. Well, you have to watch them, but I feel like, and this is one that I think I mostly trust in what Showtime does. I basically only have like one caveat with them at the moment. This is, I guess, Paramount, Showtime, because they're combined now. Which is they're like, whatever they're doing with Dexter, which we should talk about. I did miss in the news the casting announcement on Dexter, which we could chat about. I'm watching Agency, so maybe we'll go here. Did you hear about the casting news for Dexter Resurrections, Taran? Or Resurrection?
I don't think I did.
Uma Thurman has joined the cast of Dexter Resurrection.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. So Uma Thurman joined the cast. I believe they started or were going to start filming in January, so it got released that she had joined the cast. I think pretty much everybody else is like people who've been in the show. Like it's the same crop of folks who were in Dexter. Anybody who's basically alive is going to be back in it. So I don't know how they're gonna do that in terms of like where he ended up at the end of Dexter New Blood versus how he'll get to be with all of those people. Could be very like manhunty in terms of like if he, we'll see, and those folks are on the chase. But Uma Thurman is fun. There is like I do feel like a little bit. There was a thing that would happen with Dexter. I'm not so resident to say it. I worry whether it's a spoiler, but I think I'll just say it. Does seem like she's gonna be the killer villain. That's what that feels
There's
like.
usually a killer villain. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's a pretty status quo Dexter thing, right? Like you had Lithgow and you had Colin Hanks and you add these people in the show. So it feels like Uma Thurman is there to be the killer that he's kind of up against within that season, but maybe it doesn't play out that way. I believe she's like connected to a billionaire. That's her role. They've like gave like a sentence announcement as to what her role
I'm
is.
sure it'll
Doesn't really
be.
matter,
I'm
but
sure it'll be fun. What I will say, I have been watching more of Dexter Original Sin
me
as
too.
well.
Yeah.
And I know we've already kind of given an update here, but I think I can confirm that like I did have a ton of problems starting this show. It felt like an SNL parody to me when I started watching it. I got used to it. I did. I got over the initial thing, and now watching this show, it is almost exactly what I said I wanted it to be, which is that like if I just squint my eyes, I'm back in 2005 watching Dexter.
Yeah.
That's pretty 2006 watching
Yeah.
Dexter. It's like
yeah.
It's the same show. It's the same exact show.
Well, they're
just
doing
with-
the origin. Yeah, they're doing the origin. So it's all this, So yeah.
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 You know what? It's working. It's working well enough. I'm having fun with it.
Yeah. Same. The other thing I'm watching, obviously, is Severance. Aired its second episode. I thought it was very good. I think that there's definitely the take you can make that the first 2 episodes should have been released as a batch. They should have done that with Silo. They likely could have done this, but I don't really blame them to be like, let's get 10 weeks of the show instead of 9 weeks of the show. So I'm not mad at it, but I do think the quality of season 2 so far is incredibly strong. They're chatting about it. Adam Scott's one of Adam Scott's favorite podcasts, as mentioned on a We Know Severance podcast. We Know Severance. Check it out. Josh, Muslim and I went and chatted, did the feedback show last week as well, but I think episode 2 was pretty great as well. So
second episode, I'd say better than the first.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't think that's
personally.
I think that's correct.
Not like in a terrible way, but like, just it was more so what I was looking for at the start of the second season.
Well, it rounded out that story, I think. I think there's a way in which like the first episode leaves you wanting a little bit more, and I think episode 2 gives you it. Yeah.
I did watch the premiere of the Joe Schmo Show, which is the new honestly, I don't even like it's labeled reality TV, but it is definitely very scripted, which is most reality TV anyway. But like, it kind of falls in this sort of no man's land category.
We struggled with this about like when we were doing a few years ago, like the top 10 TV shows, like whether Jury Duty should have counted. And it's like
Jury Duty, I'd say, is more scripted than Joe Schmo.
But it is like scripted, and it's also improv, right? Like a lot of these people have to react to what he's doing.
Yeah,
he's in unknown.
Like they had like, I mean, they have storylines. Joe Schmo,
yeah, that's
but like,
true.
Yeah, it was even more rigid, I would say, in Jury Duty.
Right.
I really liked. I thought the original run of Joe Schmo was very fun. I liked the second season a lot as well. I think my reaction to this Joe Schmo is that it was fun, just like it always has been. It does feel to me like they're a little bit stuck in like the humor and aesthetic of like the, again, like early 2000s, which for Dexter like worked, but for the Joe Schmo Show, like I would have loved for them to like get out of 2003 and into 2020 at least, because the aesthetic and humor and sort of pacing for reality TV has changed a lot, and it feels like they're trying to recreate what they were doing in 2003, but what they did in 2003 was recreate what was happening in 2003. So that's my only issue with it, but it was still a fun time.
Well, one of the things I think that's like so interesting is you have 20 plus like Joe Schmo comes out in 2003. That's only 3 years after Survivor debuts. You now have if anybody knows this, Taran, it's you and I and everybody listening to a scripted TV podcast on the We Know Reality TV, larger RHAP brand, where there's so much to pull from that I do think I wonder whether we're just I'd love for my mom to watch. And actually, my mom watches a fair bit of reality TV. I need somebody who's I just wonder how much we're impacted by how much we know, and then how much potential there would be, I think, for to play around with basically what everybody says all the time, which is reality shows are fake. How much you could do with that premise, and without having seen it. If you're a little it feels a little dated. It feels like they're not really capitalizing on that, but I don't know.
We also have a couple of movies. Flight Risk came out. Not well received by audiences, but well frequented by audiences. It has, I think, won the box office this week. So doing decently well. But as you can sort of see by the IMDb rating, at least, people are, and this is sort of, quite frankly, what I expected from the trailer, but maybe not the best movie.
Yeah, it won the box office. It made $2 million. So, yeah. But the other thing is that was I think it's already made back its budget as well. So that's fine. That's just fine. It's very funny. Going to New York, one of my plans was to go to a movie with a lot of people from New York who I talk about movies a lot, and including Ariel, and some other friends. And we just couldn't find something to go see. We really didn't want to go see Flight Risk. Wolfman wasn't really playing in the mornings, I think, because it was its second week. And sort of horror-y. I think they were saving it for more nighttime showings. And then everything else was kind of you could catch The Brutalist, but I didn't want to subject all my friends to watching The Brutalist for 3.5 hours. So we didn't end up really. I saw two movies with my friend, with Ariel, but we didn't go to collectively as a group. The movies that I saw with Ariel, it's going to be very fun. We saw Hard Truth. So I'll start with Hard Truth. This is a Mike Leigh movie. I really liked this. This is actually both movies that I saw, I think, are really good COVID movies. And I think that there was a little bit of a lack of figuring out how to do COVID movies while COVID was still so fresh. I think there was a little bit of either wanting to completely dismiss it or doing it in a way that I just didn't think worked. And I think now we have enough time for people's thoughts about what it was like during COVID. This movie is about basically a woman who just can't. There's so much. She's had so much hardships thrown at her, but also can't really let any of the good moments in, and so she's constantly putting up this wall. It's both extremely tough to watch in the sense that it is this portrayal of this woman who's going through a lot. It's also so funny. She is so funny in this movie. I cannot believe this is Marianne Jean-Baptiste. I can't believe she didn't get nominated. She's so good in this movie. But I think it's really good, and it's definitely a post-COVID movie. She's definitely affected by COVID in it. I thought it was really strong. The other movie, which is also poignant but more on the funny side, was Grand Theft Hamlet. Taran, have you heard of Grand Theft Hamlet?
I've not.
This is a documentary that is about two out-of-work actors, because they were in a lockdown, deciding to put on a version of Hamlet entirely within the world of Grand Theft Auto. So it's filmed entirely within Grand Theft Auto, and it is so fun. There are these moments where they had put out a call out, they just sent a message in the Grand Theft Auto world being we're doing auditions at the Vine Bowl in the GTA world. And as they're doing it, and people drive their cars up, and they're oh, somebody's here. And then they're do you think they're here to kill us or to do the audition? And they'll be doing an audition, and someone will pop out and start shooting them, and the wasted thing comes up, and then the police are chasing them. It is
actually let's play the movie.
It is let's put on the play, and the thing isn't recreating the movie, isn't recreating the play. In fact, they definitely they just show scenes of them putting it on. It is more about, and then the more that they're trying to plan it, the more that the world is starting to open up, and different people have things that they can return to, and some people have been more affected by COVID or don't have other things to turn to. It's extremely, extremely good. I love this documentary a lot. I think it's well worth checking out. I very much enjoyed watching it. It's so funny, but it also is like pretty poignant. It's a really good reflection of like what it was like to live through COVID lockdowns and then also the opening back up of the world, but trying to figure out and navigate the digital spaces that you inhabited during COVID, and then how those stay in your life or you leave them because the real world was opening back up. It's extremely good and I highly recommend it.
Huh?
Grand Theft
All right.
Hamlet. Yeah.
Well, I did watch another movie. I watched A Real
fun.
Pain. I did.
Yes.
Kieran Culkin did do very well in this.
Mhm.
In this, his performance was very good. I would say overall, I thought it was good.
Mhm.
That was kind of. I don't have a lot to say about A Real Pain other than like it was good. It was like it was just a solid movie. It never like breached that for me, but it also was never bad or boring.
Yeah.
Just good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
I really like it. I mean, really, really like it. I really like there's a dinner scene, Taran, where it's like the culmination of like how they sort of feel about it. I think it's these two people who both are different people and so love the things they have and then also are jealous about the things that the other person has that they do not, in the sense that like Jesse Eisenberg's character is very much like more of an introvert, more responsible, more strict, and like adheres to things that he's supposed to do, whereas Benji, played by Kieran Culkin, is the opposite. He's like an easygoing free spirit bro dude who will just do and say whatever he wants, and both of those things have incredible pros to them and then obviously incredible cons of like Jesse Eisenberg's character never feeling like he's able to like really live freely, and he's contained by doing that and being and not being impromptu, and obviously what Benji, like Kieran Culkin's character, gets out like doesn't get from being he never has like as much stability in his life. And I felt like the examination of those things, but also with the lens of historic trauma that is faced like families, and specifically in this example like Jewish families, it was incredibly poignant, incredibly powerful in a really like subtle way. I feel like it never beats you over the head with those themes and messaging. So I
think
really like it, but I think it's totally fair to say, yeah, it's good. It's good.
I think the theming is the best part. I like the title and the way that it ties in.
Yeah.
For me, I think talking about the characters, I feel like the characters were not as subtle as they could have been, while at the same time never having like a super big moment. Like it's the kind of movie that doesn't try to be too melodramatic. It tries to be a
Right.
little more subtle, but at the
Right.
same time, I felt like it wasn't being as subtle as that warranted,
I
if
hear
that
you.
makes sense. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, I love Will Sharp, who's in the last season of The White Lotus, plays their tour guide. And the moment when he's saying goodbye to them is so funny. It's so funny. I think he's great in that movie. So I hear you though. I think there's a way in which it's um in the way of trying not to do too much with like the moments of the movie and the way that those things happen, then it also tries to maybe compensate for that with these characters who um are really like the most, you know, versions of the themes of the movie. I mean, and that might not work for some people. I think that's
Yeah.
fair.
But good. I would not have
Good.
any real
Yeah.
issue with it. Okay. And then one more thing I wanted to check in on. Sex Lives of College Girls finished its third season this
Did.
week. And I would say shaky start to the season. They had some shakeups. They had to move some pieces around on the board. I think you could tell in the season that some pieces had been moved around. There are some storylines that pop up and are dropped, and so on and so forth. But by the end of the season, I thought it was a very good finale. Very good season finale for season 3.
I've heard this.
Probably the strongest the show has ever been, in my opinion.
Well, okay.
Still, it's a good show.
I need to check this one out. I feel like I saw people sort of raving about what the show is doing, and it's just a thing that's just sort of skipped me a little bit. It's like Yeah. So I need to check it out. But I've heard really good things about this, especially the ending of the season. Covered by Sasha and Chappelle on the network. So if you want to check it out, there should be some recaps. I believe across well, it's at least in the We Know Scripted feed, if not also the not Nothing but Netflix, the recap kickback feed, but I'm not sure with that 100%. I did go see a Broadway show in New York, Taran. I went to go see a show with friend of the pod, Josh Wigler. I went to go see Oh Mary. I don't know if you have a way to pull anything up on this one, but that's okay. So Oh Mary is about Mary Todd Lincoln in the days leading up to her going to uh, a theatrical play with her husband Abraham Lincoln, but was written and starring Cola Scola, who's in Search Party and some other stuff. They are non-binary actor. They are incredibly funny and talented. And I was slightly disappointed because I picked a show in New York. Toronto has a pretty good Broadway scene. We get a lot of pretty good productions of shows, but I picked a show thinking, oh, well, probably this is the only time I'll ever see Cola Scola in this version of the show, even if I ever get to see a version of the show. And then it turns out like I had missed that about a month before. Cola Scola said, I'm only doing this up until the week before Grace Leeder comes to New York City. Not really, but kind of. And then Betty Gilpin played Mary Todd Lincoln instead. So I got to see Betty Gilpin from American Primeval and Glow and lots of other stuff play Mary Todd Lincoln. I really love this show. I thought it was extremely funny. It's a full-on comedy. It's very queer. It's super millennial coded. I've heard some rumors. I had a theory about why maybe Cole, because I think there is something about a non-binary person and then giving the role to a cis woman. The understudy has been a cis woman. But I had some theories about that, but it does seem like potentially Cole will come back once Betty Gilpin has done it because this might be in the running for some Tony Award nominations. So I don't think if you're like go to New York and you're go to the Broadway, I don't think you're going to be like surprised that Oh Mary is good. I think a lot of people have seen it, but if you're ever going to visit New York or eventually it starts a tour and you get a chance to see this, I think this is very funny and worth checking out. So I don't go to New York. It was my first time in New York, so I saw a Broadway show and wanted to highlight Oh Mary. So
all right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's run through very quickly some of the upcoming shows this week. We have Mythic Quest.
I feel like people have been surprised by Mythic Quest that it's sort of just like suddenly going to have the fourth season. It comes out on the 28th, I believe, it's 29th. It's back. There's also, I believe, a spin-off coming, Taran, for Mythic Quest. So, are you a Mythic Quest person?
Mythic Quest for me is a show that is occasionally very good, mostly pretty okay, and then for one episode a season, it's amazing.
They have the best COVID episode, I think, of anything I've ever seen. It's one of the best.
They do one episode a season that is usually mostly unrelated to the main plot, and it's usually very good. And then occasionally they also have some other very good stuff. But then I think a lot of the time it's like your kind of fairly standard run of the mill like comedy. But it's definitely worth checking out.
I would agree with that. I think that's a really good take. Jess Sterling wrote in the chat, yes, 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 yes. So I think she agrees with you.
There are a few other shows. We've got Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is like an new animated Spider-Man show out on Disney Plus this week. So that will maybe be fun for, kids or maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard actually good things about that. So, yeah.
British show Brian and Maggie coming. This is about the infamous 1989 television interview between former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and journalist Brian Walden, which marked the end of their friendship and catalyzed Thatcher's resignation. I don't know enough about British culture to know about this infamous interview, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, this does seem fun. It's cast pretty interesting. That's Harriet Walter, who I was a little bit down on in terms of their Silo performance. And I think that she is so good when she is playing basically evil. And so this potentially will be perfect for her to play Margaret Thatcher. And then I love Steve Coogan.
Wow, I did not recognize her. That's wild.
Yeah. And then Steve Coogan as the reporter here. he'll be very good. I think this could be extremely good. This is so up my alley, I think, in terms of like historical drama stuff. Add it in being British. I'm excited for this.
Yeah. We've got another one, The Recruit, which is
Let me guess.
another spy thriller, season 2, Netflix.
But this is what's his name? This is him. It's
This is him.
Noah
Noah
Centineo. Yeah,
Centineo?
I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah, I
Centennial.
don't know.
That's how you say it. Yeah.
Listen, I've been enjoying Night Agent. I'll definitely check out The Recruit season 1 and see if it's the same.
But it's doing a season 2, so it's doing something.
Yeah. A few more. Let's see. There's Miss Austen, another I think British show. Yeah, on the BBC. This is following the lives of Jane Austen and Cassandra, her sister. This is
Egret.
starring Keely Hawes and Rose Leslie.
Yeah.
Which is very fun. Oh, and Alfred Enoch.
Yeah,
Look at
that's
that.
fun. I'm assuming this is about Jane Austen, or at least
Yes.
yeah, follows the life of Jane Austen and Cassandra, her sister.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then a couple of other like season 2s, just where I haven't seen either of these, but there's this show called School Spirits with Peyton List from Cobra Kai.
Can I tell you that's an incredibly good name for a show? School Spirits is very good. That's if that's about a haunted school, right? That's got to be good.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Maggie,
great.
Maddie, a teen stuck in the afterlife investigating her own disappearance.
That's great. I like that a lot. Yeah.
And like the reason I pointed out too is that like it does seem to be fairly well received. People seem to think it's a pretty fun show over on Paramount Plus. Another show that people like, Mo. I have not seen this one either, but similarly, it's 7.6 as well. This is a high concept comedy according to IMDb.
This is a Netflix show. This is what I was saying the other day. I was saying, did I say this on the pod already? That I do think that like shows like Apple TV. So like Apple TV has done an incredible job with their Severance marketing, but I think we're all being tricked to a degree and being like, oh my God, everybody is watching Severance. I think, did I say Severance? That was me combining Succession and Severance. So I've been doing a bad job of recently. It's not that I don't think people are not watching Severance. I think people definitely are watching Severance. People are enjoying talking about Severance. Severance is the best show to be talking about. But Apple has to do marketing. Not enough people have Apple to warrant like a lack of marketing. Netflix, on the other hand, when we're like, what? Then the Recruit, like in season 2, is because that show just popped on Netflix for a bit, and that's obviously like did well enough numbers that they would like bring it back for another season. And the only way you'll really like see that show exists is if you log into Netflix to like watch TV, because it's kind of how a lot of people just watch TV, is to open Netflix and see what's on and play what's on there. This is the exact same thing. I've never heard of this show before. It's coming back for a season 2. It actually looks like something I would love, and that my algorithm should have fed to me, but has not. So I just have missed it.
I remember seeing season 1 and thinking I would watch it eventually, and so it's back now. I definitely intend to give it a shot. It seems to me, without any real context, like it's one of those kind of like comedies. Unfortunately, I would say in the vein of Louis C.K.'s show, which kind of spawned this genre of comedy shows, but like I think has gone on to continue to be like a good genre of comedy shows. So yeah, I'm interested in it.
Okay.
And then final thing, I think for me, Valiant 1 is a movie coming out with some kind of release here. This is a hey, you guessed it, political thriller.
Whoa. That person
But
looks
this one,
familiar. He looks familiar.
yes,
Who's that?
Steve Barnett is directing this, who is known for producing things, not directing things, apparently. This is with tensions between North and South Korea. A U.S. helicopter crashes on the North Korean side. Now the survivors must work together to protect a civilian tech specialist and find their way out. So, like, yeah, I would say probably more like army thriller than political thriller, it sounds like, but I'm sure there's plenty of politics involved.
The other movie that comes out this week, Taran, which I think is getting mostly a limited release this week and then will get expanded, is Companion. This is the new movie by the Barbarian director, and it has Sophie, his name's Sophie Thatcher from Yellow Jacket.
Barbarian director.
People. Sorry, it might be.
This is he wrote
Nope,
My
he
Dead
didn't
Ex.
do that. He didn't do that.
Suburgatory.
So he didn't do that. So I'm just making that up. There must be another movie where the Barbarian director
So there is some news actually about the Barbarian. I forgot about this, so it's actually good that this happened. The Zach Kreger of The Whitest Kids You Know directed Barbarian, the horror movie that was very, very fun. He does have a movie coming out. Not quite yet. I spelled his name wrong. No, I didn't. It's called. What's it called?
No.
Weapons. He has a movie called Weapons coming out that is apparently testing very well. So I don't think there's like a date on it yet, but it's supposed to be very good.
Okay, I'm not totally wrong, Taran. He produced this movie.
There you go.
He produced Companion. So I'm not totally wrong, but I was wrong. It's not directed by him. Yeah.
Well, this is good though because Zach Kreger also is apparently in the midst of an auction, a bidding war. He is thinking about doing a Resident Evil movie after Weapons finishes up. So I think a lot of people are like, really, another Resident Evil movie? But this is Zach Kreger, who at this point, between Barbarians and then if Weapons does really well, and he apparently was a producer on Companion, which is also I think doing getting some good buzz. Then he seems to have like some good track records here for potentially taking on a big IP like Resident Evil, which would I think be a reboot that is, I think they said, more faithful to the games.
Companion seems fun. Sophie Thatcher, but also Jack Quaid and Harvey Gillian from What We Do in the Shadows, and Jabuki Young White and Rupert Friend. It looks to be very fun. It's getting some good reviews. A horror movie, coming out just before Valentine's Day ish. So yeah, it should be fun.
All right. Well, Grace, anything else?
I did get the one other thing I did go to, which I've talked a lot on this podcast about Dropout and getting stuff on Dropout. And Jess Sterling and I sat next to Jess Sterling in Madison Square Garden to watch their sold out show of people playing Dungeons and Dragons in Madison Square Garden. It was wild and so much fun and so cool for like 20,000 nerds just be geeking out about people rolling dice and playing improv. It was so fun. The production value was wild. It'll be streaming, I think, on their platform at some point. You do probably want to be like a Dimension 20 fan to get all the references for the show that happened, but it was just very cool to be in Madison Square Garden watching people play Dungeons and Dragons. And that felt like, to me, I've talked about like that I just think it's pretty wild as a cultural touch point that like that can happen, So it was very cool. And I got to sit next to Jess to watch it. So it was very fun.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, very packed episode. Hopefully you're able to follow along. Lots of things to touch on. But we will, of course, be back next week to talk about some of these things. Maybe check out Brian and Maggie. Check out The Recruit and a couple other of these other shows and movies, and let you know what's good. And hopefully, I think a couple more episodes of Paradise will also be dropped this week. So I'm excited for that. I think Paradise is kind of like the big new show for me based on that first episode, but we'll see.
More Severance is coming as well. So yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, tune in next week. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed to the We Know Scripted TV feed if you want this as a podcast, or you can watch along with the video version. And we have some visuals for you. I turned off autoplay because apparently auto-playing trailers will flag you on YouTube.
But our lovely editor and producer Jess Sterling fixed it for us, so you got to watch the full episode last week. We were not copyright flagged.
If you saw the Brutalist trailer blurred out, it's because Jess had to blur it out because we were getting copyright struck.
It wasn't because Adrian Brody was naked in the trailer.
But yes, that's what we've got for you. Anything else, Grace, to plug?
No, I don't think so. Not at this moment. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today, and we will see all of you next time.